Welcome back from the short break. Anyone listening to me? Anyone listening to me?
Yes, I'm getting
Yes, we are there, Ben.
Okay. I think the rest will be joining. We can start on with our part 2. Part 2, as I said, we shall look at business continuity management system and how it's implemented in organizations. And how it's implemented in organizations. So let's start with an understanding about business continuity management system. A holistic management process that identifies disruptive threats and their impact on the organization's operations. Now, business continuity, much as we have seen that's the solution, it's the solution to business disruption. When it comes to practice, it is implemented as a system implying that it is comprehensive. Entire organization has to be part of this. That's why it's called a system. And it involves identifying disruptive threats. You analyze their impacts to the business operations, and then you lay down strategies to ensure that when they occur, they don't actually affect your operations. And on this other slide, you see organizations' operations, IT, sales, finance, marketing, human resource, services, and products. This would be production. Any organization has at least some point to have all part of these operations here. So these are the critical operations that usually, they are not, of course, exhaustive. There are others, they are not limited to this. There are others that make part of an organization's operations. So a management system that integrates all these operations to ensure continuity is what we call business continuity management system. BCMS provides a framework for safeguarding organizations' key assets. We shall later on look at what these key assets are. And below there, strategically, BCMS provides a planned platform for anticipating and managing disruptions before, during, and after they occur. So the most important issue here is before, during, and after they occur. So unlike what most organizations do, they only wait for a disruption to occur and then they lay down their response strategies. This has to go beyond that if we are to ensure continuity. You have to be in position to anticipate, and then you manage before, during, and when they occur. And when you do that, you'll be able to protect organizations' key assets, which are image, brand, reputation, key stakeholders, and value-creating activities, among other key assets. Now, when you look at the first three, image, brand, and reputation, these are intangible assets. Intangible assets, in most cases, give rise to competitive advantages for any organization. You can copy all these others, but you can't copy an organization's image. You cannot duplicate the brand, and you cannot as well duplicate the reputation of an organization if you are a competitor. But when it comes to key stakeholders, you can manipulate. Someone, their microphone. You can manipulate around with key stakeholders and value creating activities because these are tangible, you can see them. So it's better to protect these key assets, there are 5 key assets, if you are to ensure continuity of your business operations. Now we talked about organizational resilience. How does the BCMS contribute to organizational resilience? Now, a BCMS system has 4 key plans, which all contribute to resilience. There is an emergency response plan, crisis management plan, business continuity plan, and then IT disaster recovery plan. Now, when to use these plans differ. To begin with, emergency response plan. This response plan is activated only when an emergency or a disruption has just occurred. The situation has been normal, then all of a sudden, an emergency occurs. That's when you can activate the emergency response plan. The crisis management plan is activated only when the disruption or the emergency is taking a bit longer than expected, and it has started impacting on your business operations. That's when the crisis management plan is activated. Now, if the disruption goes to the point of affecting the supply of goods or services to your customers, actually like what's happening right now, at a point of shutting down, then that's when the business continuity plan is activated. Now, when it comes to the IT disaster recovery plan, this is essentially for communication and IT information. It is activated to ensure that communication is not tampered with. Your information, IT information is safe, it's not tampered with. So when you integrate all these plans together, then you expect your organization to be immune. And by being immune, it means it is resilient to any disruption. So that's how BCMS contributes to organization resilience. Unlike other organizations, they only have, say, an emergency response plan in place or a crisis management plan. So such organizations are reactive. But for today, modern world, you have to be proactive. You have to be able to anticipate and see how you can counter disruption. Then let's look at the benefits of BCMS. The purpose of BCMS is to ensure an organization's overall ability to endlessly operate before, during, and after the disruption. So once you have a BCMS in place, then you are able to continuously supply your goods or services or operate before, during, and after a disruption. So irrespective of the time frame when the disruption occurs, you can still operate within acceptable limits. So the benefits for that is that, one, from a business perspective, you are able to operate and meet your mission or goals. You can produce services or products, and you can deliver them to your final customers. And in that case, you can generate revenue. Then from a financial perspective, that the BCMS provides or safeguards you against any financial or legal exposures. Because when you're drafting this BCMS, the plan takes in consideration all the safety measures, all the regulatory issues in place, such that you do not go against any regulatory issues. Then from stakeholder perspective, Stakeholders, this is a group of people, institutions with vested interest in your organization. It starts from your own employees, top management, shareholders, your customer, your supplier, the financials, regulatory institutions, all those ones fall under stakeholders. So what usually happens is that the interests of all these stakeholders are catered for in the BCMS system. So once you have a BCMS system in place, then you're sure beyond reasonable doubt you'll be able to meet the interests of your key stakeholders. And then when you look at the internal processes, these are processes within your organization. These are processes within your organization, like the finance, the production, the marketing, all those processes which actually facilitate the creation of value are your internal processes. As we saw earlier on, we looked at organizations' operations, where we saw IT, finance, marketing, all those are incorporated into the BCMS system. So once you have it in place, then all those processes are catered for. So these are the key benefits of having a BCMS system at your organization. So how do we implement BCMS? There are 7 key issues to have in place if you're to implement BCMS. We have organization context, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, and then continuous improvement. Now, there is a methodological framework that we call PDCA. PDCA is plan, do, check, and act. It's a framework upon which continuous improvement is anchored. So when you decide to implement BCMS at your organization, then this is the framework you have to follow. And when you look at this chart here, leadership is at the center. Because leadership, without leadership, then you cannot have BCMS in place. Top management has to decide to implement BCMS, and then they have to sponsor the program. They have to make plans, like you see here, planning. And once you have plans in place, then you have to provide the resources where we have support and operation. You have to provide the resources, financial resources, human resources, any form of resources that you need to implement this BCMS at your organization. Then there is, once you have resources and you're operating, now you do performance measurement. The reason as to why we track performance is for purposes of improvement. You have to evaluate your performance, because when you look at here, there are intended outcomes that you expect. So if you don't track your performance and measure critically or rightly, then you will not know if your system is working or not. So you have to track and evaluate your performance and then see if actually you meet the intended outcomes here. Otherwise, then you have to improve. You have to improve, and by improving, then it takes you to a cycle. So implementing a BCMS is not a one-off project. It's a continuous project that takes time. It's iterative until you keep on, and then you get the intended outcomes. And as I said before, you can see here down, needs and expectations of relevant interested parties. This system takes or caters for the needs and expectations of all these relevant interested parties. So once you have it in place, then you don't expect any breach. And then when you look at organization and its context here you simply need to understand what your organization does, the kind of the environment, the nature of your customers, the nature of your resources that you need, your organization as a whole. That's what we mean by organization and its context, because this is it's up to this that you will be able to know the needs of your customers and other stakeholders. So with that said, let's have a look at what PDCA is in detail. As I said, to implement BCMS, then you follow this framework here, the PDCA cycle. And here we are saying that plan, do, check, and act cycle is a 4-step iterative management method that helps in implementing, maintaining, continuously improving the effectiveness of an organization's BCMS. So you look at the chart. When you look at the chart on your right, in the middle you see continuous improvement. Then all around you see plan, do, check, act. So it is that framework upon which BCMS is implemented in your organization. You follow this. So that implies that each of these phases, there are activities that you have to do. So I want us to have a look at each of these phases in brief. This slide here, you can see plan. What do you do when you're planning? Of course, that's where initiation of the BCMS implementation starts. At that point, the management or the top management of the organization decides and accepts to implement BCMS at your organization. And then you have to understand the organization and its context. As I said, understand the organization, that is what you do, your customers, the nature of your business environment, and anything related to your organization and your purpose. Then you have to analyze your current or your existing system. Since you're going to implement BCMS, you have first of all to analyze the current system. When you're analyzing the current system, you're trying to establish your current level of performance or something like that. And in that case, you'll be able to establish the gaps, which will lead you to BCMS scope. Now, the BCMS scope here is when you look at those critical areas you've identified that actually need much attention. It could be in finance, it could be in production, it could be in marketing, something like that. Then the leadership and has to commit, the top management has to commit. Commitment, you have to come up with policies. You know, when you don't have policies in place, then you cannot get procedures. Policies lead to procedures. So leadership and the commitment still occurs under the first phase, which is plan. And then now you develop the BC objectives and the planning of changes. What actually do you want to achieve by implementing the BCMS? These objectives here. So the policy has to lead to support these objectives, so that when you draft your procedure, the procedure should be responsive or relating to the policy, which in turn supports your objectives. And these objectives here should be in line with your mission as an organization, should not diverge from the mission. BCMS supports your organization to achieve the mission. Okay. Then still within the planning phase, you have to establish the structure, an organization structure for BCMS. BCMS has a different structure of implementation. From each identified categories of operations, you need to have agents that will facilitate the implementation of this BCMS within those operational areas. And as I said before, that it's the top management which initiates and sponsors, but the system itself is holistic in nature, that everyone within the organization has to know and has to adhere to the objectives and the policies of this system. Then down here, we have documented information management. Like any other organization, unless you have a proof, then you don't have it in place. So documentation is key. As I said before, that many organizations, many international organizations get certified against this standard. And what's the proof to show that you are actually in position to get, or you can apply for a certification? Then you need the documented evidence. So whatever you do has to be documented. Now, when you have all these ready, then you can go to the next phase, which is do. Now, in the do phase, the first thing is In the do phase, you have to look at competence and awareness. You look at your staff. Your staff has to be trained. The entire organization, your staff has to be trained about BCMS, because you cannot just start implementing from the blue when people are not aware of what the intentions are. So you have to create awareness across the entire organization. And then still in the same phase, you have to do risk assessment. Risk assessment involves identifying potential risks that can actually disrupt your business operations. Maybe you can think about threats like a pandemic. You can think of loss of records. What happens if we lose records? So you look at those potential risks and assess their impact on your business. That's why we have the next step here as business impact analysis. To assess each of the identified risks, the impact they will have onto your organization or business operations. So after having that, you have identified the risks, you have analyzed the impact of these risks to your business operations. Now the next thing is to lay down the strategies to counter the identified risk impacts. So that will lead you to having plans and procedures eventually. When you have plans and procedures is like what actually leads you to achieving the objectives that you created in the first phase of the planning. Now, these procedures, they must be communicated to your staff. That's why we have communication there. So you have to communicate. Then the other thing that you have to do at the do phase is exercise programs. Now, exercise programs here, you do some testing of your plan, because you need to simulate this plan to ensure that once it is put in place, then you can be sure that you will get the intended outcomes, just like you saw the previous phase here. Let me take a bit. Sorry. Here, you saw intended outcomes here. Because whatever you do, you need to get this or supersede these intended outcomes. So at this point here, when you are to exercise, then you have to test your plan. You put it like it is actually working. You create some artificial environment. For instance, if you look at a pandemic, you know from your history and experience what kind of environment when the pandemic is in place. So you kind of simulate, you create that artificial environment and try to engage your plan and see if actually you will be able to operate as predetermined. Then the third phase is checking. Now here checking, it means you are already operating now. So what you need to do is to monitor, to measure your performance, to analyze your performance, and evaluate your performance. And by doing that, you'll be able to ascertain whether you are actually meeting the intended outcomes or not. And still within that phase, you have to do some internal audits. It's during these audits that you'll be able to identify the loopholes or the non-conformances, and such that during the management review, you'll be able to know with evidence that we need to make these changes and we need to implement these changes. We need to remove this and add that. Okay. Then the last phase is the act. After you've identified the loopholes and the gaps, you have to act. You have to treat the non-conformance such that you actually meet your intended outcomes. And that's what leads you to continuous improvement. Continuous improvement means that there is always a better way of doing things. You may think today it's the best or better, but there is always a better way. That's why the world has evolved ever since. Okay, at this point, I think we are coming to the end of the presentation. And if you feel you would like to implement BCMS at your organization, then you can contact us at Apple Vision Limited. This is our website here, www.applevisionltd.com. You can as well email us at info@applevisionltd.com, and these are our telephone numbers. You can give us a call. Besides BCMS, we have sorry. Well, we are on this slide here. Besides BCMS, we have additional services that we offer. As I said, we are a consulting and engineering company, and our purpose is to promote sustainable development across all the business areas and all the communities where we operate. As you saw in the introduction, our slogan is excellence above limits. So whatever we do, we pursue excellence. And the categories of our services are include two. We have business services and then engineering. So business, we have services in the area of management consulting, business plans, finance and tax, quality management systems, training and capacity building. We have legal and compliance. And as I said, that our goal is to achieve excellence. So here we are interested in achieving business excellence for our customers. And then in engineering, we have manufacturing, building and construction, water and wastewater, oil and gas, renewable energy, engineering designs, surveys and architectural designs, project management. And with this, we are interested in achieving environmental sustainability, which consequently leads us to engineering excellence. So our services are innovative and integrated in nature. So with that said, I think we can answer a few questions. We can answer a few questions.
Yes.
You can as well use the chat forum.
This is Jamil.
Yes, Jamil.
Yes, please. Thank you for the great presentation. Now, my question is about how applicable is BCM on small scale operators, because when you look at the scope of the entire strategy, it is costly. So for small scale operators, how can they operate? How can they continue their operations, or with or without the BCM?
Thank you, Jamil, for your question. Now, what I would like to inform you that BCMS is applicable to all organizations, irrespective of the sizes. Whether you're small, medium, or large, you can apply or you can implement BCMS at your organization. What you need to look at is the fundamentals about BCMS. We talked about the operations. Whether you're small, you have finance, you have sales, you have marketing, you have production. Just that your size is small, but you have all these operations in place. Okay, so BCMS you can apply irrespective of the size of your organization. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Another question?
Hello?
Yes?
Yes, Ben.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My question goes through to small and actually the small and medium enterprises. So I would like to know how much does it cost if you want to implement that BCM? Or you, as you have been presenting, can it be possible to implement it in phases? For instance, if I'm a service provider, so if I want to start with maybe cash management and the operation, is it possible for us to start from that side and then we come later for other sides also? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I supplement?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for attending the session. And thank you, the presenter, for the interesting slides shared. As the question went, if you're a small business or you're medium and you want to implement in phases, it is possible because it is a sole person that decides on how to run their business. If you say I'm beginning with cash management, because you know any system is gradual, you cannot begin and take off immediately. So you can do the cash, later you graduate to operations, and you keep graduating in stages like that. Actually, there it becomes successful. You can easily review. And in simplicity, for the business continuity, you may look at it even in terms of succession. How you ideally know that sometimes I may be running a business, and once I die with my business. So you can start instituting some individuals in the different departments who can ensure continuity even when you're not there. And maybe one simple advice, we may be here and we acquired loans before the lockdown. Now the lockdown has come, it has disrupted our businesses. We no longer receive the same incomes as planned, as anticipated before. Maybe you can go to the bank, you can restructure your loan and request the bank hold your interest and hold on the installment you already submit monthly. That is one way of ensuring business continuity right now. It is an immediate solution that you negotiate with your bank, you restructure your loan so that by the time you start again to do the supplies, you are not affected by the installment, or the installment and arrears has not accumulated to consume the whole business. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the information you've given. I don't think I need to add more on that because it has been exhaustive. Maybe what she has left out is you asked about the cost. Please, the cost, that one you can contact us. You can send us an email at info@applevisionlimited.com. We shall be able to discuss. Thank you.